الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. قال الله تعالى في التنزيل العزيز بعد نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, I want to share with you today, my brothers and sisters, the story of a great companion of Rasulullah alayhi salam, whose name was Habib ibn Zayd min al-Ansar. He was one of the people of Ansar, and he was a young man. Habib ibn Zayd, he was a young Sahabi, was born and raised in Medina, accepted Islam, and he has a very small portion in the history of our ummah, particularly in the seerah that he played, but a very significant one. And there is much that we can think about and ponder from his particular sacrifice and his ultimate demise. There was a liar, a impostor, a Dajjal by the name of Musaylama al-Kadhab, a man by the name Musaylama from Bani Hanifa, a area in modern day Saudi Arabia, which is close to present day Riyadh. And when Rasulullah ﷺ won over Quraysh and the conquest of Makkah was complete, he started to also idda'a bin nubuwah. He started to claim he was a prophet as well. And he wrote a letter to Rasulullah ﷺ. And he wrote in his letter, Min Musaylamata Rasulillah ila Muhammadin ﷺ Rasulil Islam. Salamun alayk, amma ba'd, fa inni qad ashraqtu fil amri ma'ak, wa inna lana nisfa al-ard, wa li Qurayshin nisfa al-ard, walakinna Qurayshan qawmun ya'tadun. He says this evil person who has the audacity to address himself as the messenger of God, he says, from Musaylama, the messenger of God, to Rasulullah ﷺ, the messenger of Islam, peace be upon you, I have been chosen, or I have taken half the responsibility I have shared in this responsibility of prophethood with you. Self-appointed here. And Quraysh should have half the land, and we, Banu Hanifa, should have half the land, but Quraysh want to transgress. Rasulullah, when he received the letter, he was very, he asked the messengers who brought it to him, do they believe this? And they say, yes, we believe in it, right? But the sunnah was to not harm the messenger, right? This is the sunnah of Rasulullah, and it was a sunnah from beforehand, and there was the habit of beforehand as well, before the time of Rasulullah, that the messenger who brought to you the risala was not to be harmed, as much as the letter might be offensive or whatnot. And that's where you get the expression, don't shoot the messenger. So Rasulullah replies to him, and he writes a letter, and he tells the Sahaba, uktub li, like he tells them to write, because he couldn't read or write. And he dictates the following letter to Musaylama. He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, min Muhammadin Rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ila Musaylamata al-Kadhdhab. Salamun ala man ittaba al-huda. Amma ba'd. Inna al-arda lillahi yurithuha man yasha'u min ibadihi. Wa la aqibatu lil muttaqin. Few words. That was his letter. Few words that basically everything you need to know and everything that needs to be said was said. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He says what? He said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, from Rasulullah alayhi salam to Musaylama the liar, and thus he was branded Musaylama the liar. Peace be upon the one who follows guidance. As for the land, it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He puts it in the hands of whoever He wants from His servants. Whoever He chooses, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He puts in charge of the land and gives them authority. The deen is not meant to divvy up the land. It's not meant to come and give us superiority de facto. That is part of it. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. This is the ultimate goal. But there are times, تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He is the one who sent the messenger with the truth, so that the truth will prevail over falsehood. That means the people of truth will also prevail over the people of falsehood. But also, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us, and as history teaches us, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Days, years, eras, sometimes the good guys, the people of truth will rule, sometimes the people of evil will rule. And sometimes there's a mixture of the two. But it alternates, it fluctuates, it rotates. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed it. That's how He has implemented it. So Rasulullah sallallahu is explaining this concept to this man, that this nubuwah is not just a land grab. It's not a power grab. It's not a way to get more money or more prestige. It is وَلَعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. At the end of the day, it's about taqwa, and it's about attaining Jannah. And the end on the day of judgment, and when it comes to Jannah, that will be for the believers. That will be for the righteous. So he explains this concept, and it's an important concept to Musaylama. And it's something that we all sometimes perhaps maybe misunderstand. But he writes this and he sends it off. And he asks which Sahabi is going to deliver this message. And Habib ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu rises up and says, Ana ya Rasulullah, I will take it and I will deliver it. And he does so, and this is a young man. He's maybe in his late teens at the most. At the most, he's 19 or something. So he takes this letter and he carries it all the way from Medina, all the way across the Arabian Peninsula to Banu Hanifa, and delivers it to Musaylama. Now Musaylama al-Kadhdhab reads the letter, and Musaylama al-Kadhdhab is very angry when he reads this letter, because it's metaphorically a slap in his face. So he says, he asks Habib radiallahu anhu, Atashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah? He says, do you testify that Muhammad is the messenger of God? And Habib says, Naam. He says, of course, yes. Then he says, Atashhadu anni Rasulullah? Do you testify that I am the messenger of God? And Habib is now going to play a game with him, radiallahu anhu. He says, إن في أذني صمما لا أسمع ما تقول. He says, I have something in my ear, I can't hear what you're saying. So he repeats the question. Is Rasulullah the messenger of God? Habib says, yes. And he says, do you testify that I'm the messenger of God? He says, I can't hear you, there's something in my ear. And this happens 4 or 5 times, and he's making a mockery out of a person who's claiming to be a prophet, right? Who's in all reality, a low IQ individual anyway. But he's making a mockery of him in his own court. And his people, his followers are getting agitated by a 19-year-old embarrassing their prophet, their king. Now, Musaylama gets violent. And he instructs the guards to grab him, Habib radiallahu anhu. And they grab him and they start slicing his arms. Not to chop them off, but slicing to make him bleed. Cutting him so he feels the pain. They slice the arm here. They slice the arm here. They slice on the leg here. They slice on the leg here. And every slice afterwards, they ask the same question. Do you testify Rasulullah is the messenger of Allah? Habib says, yes. And the same question about Musaylama. And Habib again plays the same game. I can't hear you. And this continues. And then till Musaylama instructs his guards to grab the tongue of Habib radiallahu anhu. And they slice off his tongue. And his mouth is bleeding, as you can imagine. His beard is now soaked in his own blood. And now Habib, when he's asked the question, he nods, yes, Rasulullah is the messenger of God. When he's asked, is Atashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, he says, yes, and he nods his head. And when he's asked about Musaylama, he shakes his head this time to say, no, I don't bear witness that you're a prophet of God. At that point, and Musaylama got what he wanted. He got the answer finally. After much embarrassment and humiliation, he instructs his guards to take it further. And they slice off the left arm and the right leg, and then the right arm and the left leg, until he bleeds to death. This is a messenger, right? The messenger takes a message from a kingdom to a kingdom, a sultan to a sultan, a elected ruler to elected ruler. Throughout history, messengers were not harmed. Even the Jahili, pagans had that understanding. But this vile, evil man was so offended by this 19-year-old's, expose of his, of who he was, that he, in a very brutal and merciless fashion, killed Habib radiallahu anhu, martyred him. And then after this, Rasulullah alayhi salam and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq afterwards, they sent an army and the revenge was sought. Banu Hanifa was defeated, and Musaylama, of course, was killed, and he is confined to the dustbin of history as Al-Kadhab, the branded liar. That's his legacy, that's what defines him. But the reason why I shared this story with you, my brothers and sisters, is 2 reasons. Number one, the heroic bravery of Habib radiallahu anhu is obvious. And the wisdom of Rasulullah ﷺ is obvious in how he explained points to people and communicated to people. The main reason that I wanted to share his story is what would cause Habib radiallahu anhu to suffer so much and yet not give in. Because Shar'an, you are allowed to give in if your life is on the line. إِلَّا مَا اضْطُرِرْتُمْ إِلَيْهِ. The Quran repeats this expression. إِلَّا مَنْ اُضْطُرَّ or muttar. This concept of someone who is compelled, held at gunpoint, about to lose their life. They have an exception in the Sharia for all things. Everything, if they are dying of hunger, the muttar, the person who is in a situation of extreme need and emergency, they're going to die, they can eat something haram. They can eat pork enough to survive. On gunpoint, a person can disavow Islam to save their life. This is Shar'an acceptable. This is not just acceptable, this is ijma'. This is the Quran speaks about it. But we see many Sahaba take the opposite position. Because they're not contradicting the Quran. It's not like they don't know the Quran and what to do. They're trying to make a point of their courage. They're trying to stand out and stand up for what's right and say, this is the truth. and we're willing to live by it, and we're willing to die for it, consequences be damned. So Habib radiallahu anhu, by the way, this is an important thing. Our enemies are the Islamophobes, these people who want to brand us as barbaric and mindless. All they want to talk about is we glorify death. We do not glorify death. We glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we do. Allahu Akbar. That's what we say. We send the salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ. We send salutations upon all the messengers. Every messenger we name, we say alayhi salam. We love life. We love life for the sake of Allah, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the sunnah. But we don't live for this life. Life is not the only thing for us. The Prophet said, Sallallahu afa wa afiyah. Ask Allah for good health and well-being. That's what we do. But when difficult circumstances come, when it's a matter of standing up for what's right, even if it costs us dearly, even if it costs us our life, we know, وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. At the end, the believers will be successful. In the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us. This is the way we look at the world. Our haters, should study the deen, and may Allah guide them. But this is not what this hadith is glorifying. And this sacrifice is not glorifying just giving up your life. To the contrary, he is standing up and being an icon for what it means to stand for what's the truth. The ultimate sacrifice in the face of a tyrant. Now Habib radiallahu anhu, coming back to his point and my question originally, why or what caused him to withstand all this pain and suffering without flinching for a moment? And the answer is, it is al-Iman. It is Iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what gave him the courage, the ability, the strength to overpower the physical pain he must be feeling, the excruciating pain of blood streaming down his arms and streaming down his mouth and limbs being amputated. The excruciating pain from that he was able to overcome it through the power of his Iman. And this is an example that we find across our history. The power of Iman overpowers physical pain, overpowers all hurdles throughout our history. From the Sahaba who, the first Sahabi who gave their life, Yasir and Sumayya, to the latest people who are ending up sacrificing their life. It is the way our precedence and our history goes, that Iman shines, especially in the most difficult moments. And it brings me to my point, which is, as we see the brutality of our brothers and sisters in Gaza, we see an interesting effect. People see their Iman and their perseverance. They see their sabr. They see, obviously, the suffering. Many don't want to speak about it. Many don't even want to, call it a suffering, which is, which is as evil and as vile as what's being done to them. To not even recognize the genocide, to support it, to be complicit in it, is just as bad as the one who's doing it. But what our brothers and sisters in Gaza are showing the world is the example of Habib radiallahu anhu. The one who stood up and stood out for his courage. Stood up for the truth. All the types of pain and suffering he bore, didn't flinch. And our brothers and sisters right now are doing the same thing, and they're inspiring thousands of people. People are accepting Islam just by looking at the people of Gaza and their sabr and their Iman. Because it doesn't make sense from a worldly perspective. How can you bear this? How can you go through this? How can you still pray? How can you still fast? How can you still have smiling kids? How can you still have Jumu'ah? After all this brutality, it doesn't add up to a non-religious mindset, to a mindset that's not understood the Sharia. But when they understand the Quran and Sunnah, it makes sense and the truth becomes evident. So this is, as we continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in Gaza, as we continue to have our hearts being broken when we see their images and we see the videos and we see the hypocrisy and we see the complete lack of accountability of the Zionists who are just brutally doing whatever they want. No one is holding them accountable. No one is stopping them. And we see the silence of the Muslim countries, letting our brothers and sisters getting slaughtered. Everything we see, it hurts us. Let us remember of Habib radiallahu anhu. Let us remember that our brothers and sisters who are going through what they're going through right now in Gaza, they are living the example of Sayyidina Habib radiallahu anhu. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وولا أما بعد. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين وصل على محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. اللهم أحينا على سنته ومتنا على ملته واحشرنا في زمرته واسقنا من حوضه يا رب العالمين. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. اللهم كن مع إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم كن مع إخواننا المستضعفين في السودان. اللهم كن مع إخواننا المستضعفين في اليمن وفي غزة وفلسطين. اللهم كن معهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم انصر لهم ولا تنصر عليهم. اللهم امكر لهم ولا تمكر عليهم. اللهم ثبت أقدامهم ووحد صفهم وسدد رميتهم يا رب العالمين. تبدأ جرحاهم وعافي مبتلاهم وتقبل شهداءهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم عليك بالظالمين. اللهم عليك بالظالمين. اللهم عليك بالظالمين فإنهم لا يعجزونك. اللهم أهلك الظالمين بالظالمين وأخرجنا من بينهم سالمين. اللهم اجعل عليهم سنين كسن يوسف يا رب العالمين. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to be with our brothers and sisters who are suffering in Sudan, in Yemen, in Gaza, in Palestine, and all places where Islam is being fought. Oh Allah, we ask you to be in their support and not be against them. Oh Allah, we ask you to support them and not have anyone support against them. Oh Allah, we ask you to provide for those who are suffering from them, to heal those who are ailing from among them, to accept those who have been martyred from them. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to hold the wrongdoers to account, to take them to task. Oh Allah, we ask you to take them to task. Oh Allah, we ask you to take the wrongdoers, the oppressors to task, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Oh Allah, we ask you to take them to task like the plague and the drought of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. The same suffering, oh Allah, we ask you to bring that upon them. Oh Allah, we ask you at the end for good health and good being, good times and good well-being. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us the best in this life and the best in the next life, and to deliver us from the fire of hell. وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استووا استقيموا تراصوا واعتدلوا. Please make sure the lines are straight. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.